I don't get to see him every once in a while. But that's okay. He'll be here after I get done working.
Okay, we are back on YouTube. So when you log in, we'll go off of Skype. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I apologize. We lost a few minutes there. But again, it's like this thing with Baltimore and racism. Right now, we have both sides of the aisle, beliefs away from capitalism.
Okay.
All righty. We're back. So we have beliefs for capitalism and we have beliefs for socialism. And the people on the socialistic side are trying everything they can to push this thing and get you to believe that all is well with this economy. And it goes back to one of the, let me reach over and grab my paper, one of the wish lists for the One World Government group that says a zero growth society without prosperity or progress, only greater wealth and power for the rulers. Now, that's what we're seeing, ladies and gentlemen, is look at the last 6 years, 7 years. This is what we're going at. Why aren't we growing? We're not growing right now. We're going in the opposite direction of growth. To hear people sit here and say, well, this economy is growing. Well, if we were 5% GDP in the third quarter, 2.2% in the fourth quarter, and now 0.2% in the first quarter of 2015, that's not growth.
Far from it. Way, shape, fashion, or form growth.
I didn't understand you.
That's in no way, shape, fashion, or form growth. That's a negative.
Absolutely. You know, if I had put on 5 pounds back last summer and I lost 10 pounds, that's not growth. That's progress, but that's not growth. And for everybody to just sit here and say, oh, everything's honky-dory, everything's where we want it to be. Yes, a zero growth society. And this isn't just in the United States. Look at Europe, look at Asia, look at Africa, look at South America. Brazil today raised their interest rate to 13.25%. They have, last month, their inflation was 8% in 1 month. This is what we're looking at around the world, folks. Do your homework. Go look. I don't make these numbers up. I try not to be that smart. Anyway, okay. And thanks for your email today, Tucklow. Already in corporate news today, Francois Michelin passed away at the age of 88. Francois Michelin. He was the CEO of Michelin Corp. He was the son of Edward Michelin, who started the company way back when. He took over in 1955 and turned it into the #1 tire maker in the world. It's interesting to look at his history a little bit because in like 1960, the head of General Motors said, oh, that tire will never catch on. Nobody wants it. We're not going to put it on new cars coming out of the factory. It's just not going to happen. Well, the head of GM at that time was totally wrong, because a lot of cars coming off the assembly line now have Michelin tires on them. And their first big one, that steel belt, was the X tire. You remember that, Tucklow?
Yep.
Yep. And so anyway, he passed away. And I have a lot of friends here in this area, because Michelin North American headquarters are right down the street from where I live. So, and I have a lot of friends that work there, and they're in pretty good positions, middle to upper management positions. So, and I know people that aren't in big positions like that too.
My friend Jerry was a supervisor for Michelin out of Ardmore. They've got a big tire plant in Ardmore. So, I know a lot of folks that work for them too. I've got a lot of family that worked for them, retired out of there. And
Yeah.
they paid a real good wage, But guess what? You couldn't go in there and be a high school dropout and not know squat and get a job making you $20 an hour. It just doesn't work that way. You've got to have a little bit of an education.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And they have several factories in the upstate of South Carolina, and yeah, you can go in there with a high school diploma, but still, if you're going to go anywhere, it helps to have an education. And they have scholarship programs and things like that.
They're a good company, real good company.
They are. Everybody I know that works there loves it there. So yeah, do they have problems with their job sometimes? Yeah, we all do. I want to go back. We were talking yesterday about the Supreme Court issue and the same sex, and I said, this is not about gays and lesbians. This is about taking away freedom of religion. And I read some quotes and so forth from the White House and the IRS, et cetera, saying the same thing. Now, I want to put a word of caution out here, because this is how the left works. Number one, they crush their enemies. This is what they're trying to do with bakers and florists and photographers. They're trying to crush them. If you don't want to play by our rules, we're going to crush you. They don't, go to court. That one baker's supposed to pay a $135 fine. What's so sad about that is this judge doesn't realize that those two lesbians went out and found a Christian bakery. This is how all this started. All right. And we got to go to a break, and we're on our second program on YouTube. So anyway, we got to go to a break. We'll be right back.
And we're back with Richard G. Medlock. If you're there, Richard, take it away.
I'm here. And we're going to stay in here as long as we can. All right. Gays and lesbians, I'm going to talk directly to you about how the left operates. When they get what they want, when they stranglehold freedom of religion, they're going to throw you under the bus. Now, you're sitting there going, whoa, wait a minute. No, 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 no. Let me give you some examples.
Before you go on, I'll be out of the booth for about 10 minutes. I'll be back in time for the next break. Carry it on.
Okay. The biggest example of throwing somebody under the bus are the blacks. They have thrown them under the bus for illegal immigrants. They feel like that they own the black vote, which they do. They get 96, 98% of the black vote. They have a percentage in a position like you saw in Baltimore and New York and Ferguson and other places. That's a percentage of the black. Now, we had plenty of black people, black leaders and mothers and people like that come out and talk about how this is totally disgraceful and it's a bad mark on the black race, and ministers coming out attacking Obama. Even the head of the NAACP out there is talking about how bad this is. Well, you know, that's fine for you to talk, but the NAACP a lot of times is in front of all of this. Now, right now, we have the Nation of Islam and we have the new Black Panther organization that's in charge of this. But gays and lesbians, I'm telling you now, I'm warning you, when the liberals get what they want, you're no good to them anymore. You'll be thrown under the bus. Women, they've already thrown you under the bus. How long have they talked about equal rights, equal pay, equal everything for women? And has it happened? Where are the bills to be passed for equal this and equal that for women? Where are they? They've been shouting this for years. The only thing that they have done for women is they've got them the right to have an abortion. And the hypocrisy in this whole situation, even Hillary Clinton is totally hypocritical about this. Even the women on her staff are still paid less than the men. The same thing in the White House on Obama's staff. This is total hypocrisy to get your vote. So they have thrown the blacks under the bus. They have thrown women under the bus. And gays and lesbians, they will throw you under the bus when they're through getting what they want, using you. I know that sounds like harsh words, but I'm sorry. It's the truth. This is, go back in history and look at this and put the pieces together. I'm sorry about that. Okay. The new Black Panther head, his name is Hashim Nzinga. He's head of the new Black Panther Party. And today on Black Power Radio, here's what he said. Since America has declared war on us, evidenced by military police in the black neighborhood protecting the rich, the new Black Panthers should be looked upon as founding fathers who declare war and are willing to die and kill to save our babies and to save a black nation that is dying before our eyes. He says, America is about protecting the rich and the powerful. He added, we pay taxes. They have declared war on us, and it's nothing but state racism. So if we say we are at war, we should be applauded like George Washington. And continuing, we should be applauded like Thomas Jefferson. We should be applauded like the founding fathers of this country. This is not the hate hour. This is the love hour. We have to love ourselves enough to be willing to die or kill to save our babies and to save a black nation that is dying in front of our eyes. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if that's not hate speech, I don't know what is. When was there a black nation created in the United States?
Never has
When
been.
do we have military police in their neighborhoods when a crime takes place? And Mr. Nzinga, if you want to know why the police are there more than in white neighborhoods, look at the crime rate in your neighborhoods. Look at your party alone and the gangs it influences and finances and has out there, killing their own people, your own people. Now, to sit there and even compare yourself to the founding fathers, George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, is nothing but just a travesty of your mind. Sir, you are nowhere near the founding fathers. It is despicable for you to use their names in your hate speech that you put out today. It is despicable, sir. You should go hide your head in a bucket of cement. Now, what did Martin Luther King say? We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. That is far from what Nzinga said today or used. We must, going back to King, we must not allow our created protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. Now, he has other quotes talking against violence. So, Mr. Nzinga, apparently you've never studied another person in this country who stands head and shoulders above you, and that's Martin Luther King. You have just gone out today and done just the opposite of what he asked the Negro community to do in 1963. Now, you have not only besmirched the names of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, but you have besmirched the name of Martin Luther King. And shame on you. You're a despicable person. You're out there along with Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, and others, and even Obama, stirring up the hate. This is what you want to do. You think you can win a nation by what you're doing right now. And you have a percentage of your black community that believe you, that are falling into this trap. Like I said last night, they have drunk the Kool-Aid of hate and bitterness. They don't even know the facts. And you're stirring it up with things like this. Go out, we're willing to die and to kill. That's a call to arms, Mr. Nzinga. And your good buddy, Louis Farrakhan, did this right after Ferguson. He said, let's go out and kill whites. I'd have to go back and pull that quote up, but that's what he was saying. Let's go to war. And I'm afraid to say, Mr. Nzinga and Farrakhan, if you want this war, it's going to be tough. And I think it's going to be short. Now, I'm surprised we hadn't been cut off the air yet, but this is the facts, this is the truth. And again, you have a lot of blacks out there calling for calm, calling for reason. But when you get the head of the new Black Panther Party out there calling for killing, and for this black nation, what black nation? I thought the United States was a nation for everybody. But you're out there saying it is not. The division line, the racism is coming from your side, sir. That's where the hatred, the racism, the controversies are coming from. They're not coming from this side, sir. And you need to go back and read your history books on why the Revolutionary War was fought and who fired the first shots. Sir, you are so on the side of wrong, and you are also on the side of evil. And I feel for you. And I really feel sorry for those that have drunk the Kool-Aid. There's a better life for you in this country. But you have to make it. It's going back to Carl Jung's, I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. So when you sit there and choose to become a rioter and a looter, then that's what you are. That makes you a criminal. And there's nothing that side can say and do to convince the rest of us that you can justify going out and destroying property. Yeah, go out there, paint your signs, and march up and down the street. Have no problem with that. But when you start destroying private property and destroying your neighborhood, then you have crossed the line. That is not free speech, and that is nothing but anarchy. And I say anarchy because you have shown that you do not respect any laws. You don't care about the laws. You don't care about human life. You don't care about human property. And that's what you're saying when you go out there. You're telling America, we don't like your rules because they're white rules, and we're not going to live by them. And this is what Nzinga is saying. Black nation. We're going to have our own nation. We're going to have our own rules, and we're going to live by them. That's fine, sir, but it probably won't last very long. And I feel for you. So when blacks start firing at whites, when they start firing at cops, and they get shot down and murdered because of that, sir, it is on your head, nobody else's. Yours and Louis Farrakhan and Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton.
Well, I need to interject something here. You said when they get murdered because of that. If they're firing on cops and they're firing on white people just because of the color of their skin, and somebody returns fire, that ain't murder. That's self-defense. And I'll say something right now that'll probably get my license pulled. I don't care whether you're brown, white, black, yellow, tutti frutti, purple polka dots. I don't care. Somebody pulls a gun on me, they're dead as a hammer, first go around. That is my inalienable, God-given right to defend myself, my property, and my family. That's all I'm going to say on that subject.
Well, and that happened. The people that were armed protecting their property, the rioters moved on. And they were trying to attack a reporter, and a guy came out with a shotgun and says, "No, you don't." And they backed off. Now, let me tell you a quick story to make my point so you'll understand what I'm trying to say. These riots, this misbehavior, this protest of destruction so you can have your point made because you don't listen to us when we talk. In 1967, in my hometown in upstate South Carolina, and there was a lot of unrest going on in 67 and 68. A lot of cities were being burned, Los Angeles, Miami, Washington, D.C., etc. And they came into our hometown, and I'm not going to go into the whole story, but the town shut down. And two buses of blacks drove up to the kind of the top of the hill at North Main Street. They got out of the bus and started making demands. And they said, if you don't meet our demands, we're going to burn your city down. Well, the police had already set up a line, and they had live ammunition. And they had some mounted machine guns. And so as time went on, the city was not going to meet their demands. They started lighting torches. Well, the police chief in a bullhorn says, drop the torches, get on the bus, and get out of town. That's your last warning. That's it. Well, they started walking toward buildings. Machine guns fired shots over their heads. They dropped the torches and got on the bus and left town, because the next shots were not going to be over their heads. Now, there's been other cases in the 60s and early 70s where shots were fired and the protesters stopped. Now, we'll get back into this after this break. Which break is this one? Third one or whatever?
This is the second break.
Second break. Okay. We'll be right back.
John F. Kennedy said, "Leadership and learning are indispensable to each other." At Empower Training Group, we take John Kennedy's counsel very serious. As a leader, you are striving to be the best at what you do and help others do the same. But a leader cannot stand still in knowledge or effort to accomplish those goals. Our course on sensible leadership is designed and structured to brighten your path and stretch your thinking to maximize the already leadership skills you use every day. Empower Training Group is not limited to leadership training. Our developmental courses are a diverse selection to educate in improving communication skills, team building, team management, how to become a leader or manager, and train the trainer. We develop the courses to meet your goals and expectations. We direct our instruction to your specific audience or employees' needs, and we are not limited to those courses listed above. Empower Training Group also instructs and certifies in health and safety courses. These are OSHA-approved courses to prepare your staff and employees for emergency situations. We can also arrange to conduct these courses online. Information on Empower Training Group can be found at www.richardmedlock.org or email at empowertg@gmail.com. Richard Medlock says, "Leadership is not about power. Leadership is about empowerment."
And that was his sweet wife, Lulu Bell. And folks, pay attention to the commercial because it's very real. My friend Richard does know what he's talking about and knows what whereof he speaks. Okay, Richard, let's get back to the program now.
All righty. What was I saying before we left?
Talking about black folks in your neck of the woods when they tried to riot and they fired machine gun rounds over their head instead of in them.
Yeah, and these are real instances, folks. And part of the problem that we had, or they had in Baltimore, is the non-white mayor gave the order for the police to stand down. Don't do anything. Give them space to destroy. Give them space to exercise their First Amendment rights. Well, destruction is not a First Amendment right. We've discussed that. So, and I heard people say, well, the first person that threw a rock at the police, had they just gone out and arrested them. I'm sorry, they'd have just circled the police and it'd have been terrible. But if you fire shots over their heads, get rubber bullets, folks. And I bet you the police didn't even have bullets in their guns. But get rubber bullets. Get the fire hoses out there. But you fired over their heads, they're going home. And you don't have to shoot anybody. Now, if they want to be martyrs like Mr. Nzinga, let them charge the police. But there's no excuse. In my opinion, the mayor, Rollins Blake, should be arrested for inciting a riot.
I agree.
That's a federal charge. And when you look at the last 4 mayors of Baltimore have been black, 2 women, 2 men. And you look at, there hasn't been a Republican mayor since 1967. And when you look at the Democratic policies that have gone on there, and we can, you know, Detroit and Chicago and other cities around the nation and other states that have been manipulated and run by Democrats, and we look at their economic status, which is bad, and they sit there and blame everybody else for these problems. No, we look directly to the Democratic policies on how they have treated the blacks since the 1940s, from the New Deal. They have put them basically into slavery. Those that would buy into the Kool-Aid would drink it. Now, I know a lot of blacks. I go out in the community, you go into stores, and you go places, and you see blacks working hard, 2 or 3 jobs trying to make it so they don't get stuck in that rut. They don't want that. There's a lot of them that don't want that. But the government created a system whereby the man was not needed in the household. The government stepped in as the husband. Now, if you want to put the #1 reason why we're seeing the decadence and the poverty in not only black communities, but white communities, etc., it's the total destruction of the family structure. The total destruction of the family structure. These kids do not have a father figure, and study after study after study show that that makes a total, absolute, complete difference in how these kids turn out. But the government took that away. And here was Bill Cosby out there the last 2 or 3 years preaching, marry the girl, raise the family, step up and be a man. And what happened to him? They went after him. They shut him up. And now you're saying, no, he went out and raped all those women. We don't know that.
If he did, why is he not in jail, and why was he not in jail? That's, you know, I've had my character besmirched on situations like that before too, and I'll tell everybody listening, all 8.5 million of you, the only woman I've ever been in bed with, other than when I was a baby and with my mama, is as an adult, is my wife. I've never had another lover, never had another anything. You know, she is my true love. But when I was a police officer, because sometimes in the vein of doing my job, some people got hurt and a few even got dead. And the problem is those that were evil at heart came out, and all of a sudden they're accusing me of things I never did. And thankfully, I always documented everything I did and had a tape recorder on my person so that they knew exactly what happened during, and that's way before we had body cams, folks.
And it's just amazing what they're doing to Bill. Nothing has been proved yet, and never, not in one of those cases is there a witness. You're,
And not in one of those cases are the women making the accusations willing to take a polygraph.
yeah, so they shut him up. It was like I said earlier, liberals don't just, try to convince you or try to get you out of the way. They crush you. They destroy you. They're trying to destroy what good is left in this country. All right, little sideline there. There's some interesting statistics that have come out. There are people that were coming out today saying, look, the Baltimore economy is going to be hurt for years because of this. Baltimore is in tough shape as it is. Baltimore has been identified as being a city that could become the next Detroit. And when we get back from the break, we're going to talk about that. So this is top of the hour break. Don't go anywhere. We're burning up here today.
Well, Richard, that was supposed to be the top of the hour break, but my timer was fast. So you got about 20 minutes until the next break.
Okay. Which is good because, I was looking at that and I go, yeah, we are early. So, which is okay. We started early and had a little bit of confusion with my computer. I've got to make me a list, just a checklist, instead of trying to, in this old brain, remember all that. All right, because I got caught up in some things and had another technical issue with the other laptop, and it kind of got me a little bit rattled. But anyway, articles came out today, a couple of articles about how this destruction in the black community and by the blacks is going to have a long-term effect on the economy in Baltimore. Baltimore is not doing well to start with. They're having a lot of people move out. Industry is moving out. They have a Republican governor right now, but the Democratic governor before him, O'Malley, just created a lot of havoc that took the economy down in that state. So, and it's basically a liberal state, and and you sit there and say, well, how did you get a Republican governor? Because some of the liberals are getting fed up with it. So you've had 50 plus years of Democratic policy that have just destroyed the city. And maybe the mayor thought, hey, we'll let the blacks go out and burn up their community, and then we'll get a bunch of money from the government, and we can line our pockets and not really rebuild that. Who knows what she was thinking? That's just speculation. But
I don't think she was. I don't think she's thinking at all. I think she is reacting as the racist that she is.
Well, it's been proven that she was in direct contact with Valerie Jarrett in the White House and all this. She was taking orders from the White House. And anyway, this is the challenge we have here. All right, there's been several studies done on black communities after riots from the 1960s to the 1980s, and now there's going to be another study done. They've already started putting together one in Ferguson. In Ferguson, since August, when all that went down in August of 2014, home prices have dropped 47%. 47%. Home sales are down. A lot of people that wanted to sell their house that had it on the market took it off the market because they're not going to get their price for it now. Businesses are not coming back in, and that's the norm. So who wrote this article? William Collins and Robert Margo, M-A-R-G-O, and the labor market effects of the 1960 riots. And this is NBER, NBER.org. It's one of their studies. But if you go there and Google riot economic effects, I've got a whole bunch of things here, but we're not going to go all of them. But he says, any American at a certain age remembers the race riots that tore through U.S. numerous cities in the 1960s. Between 1964 and 1971, civil disturbances, as many as 700 by one count, resulted in large numbers of injuries, deaths, and arrests, as well as considerable property damage concentrated in predominantly black areas. Although the United States has experienced race-related civil disturbances throughout its histories, the 1960s events were unprecedented in their frequency and scope. Law enforcement authorities took extraordinary measures to end the riots, sometimes including the mobilization of National Guard units. The most deadly riots were in Detroit, 1967, Los Angeles, 1965, and Newark, New Jersey, 1967. Measuring riot severity by also including arrest, injuries, and arson adds Washington, D.C., 1968 to that list. Particularly following the death of Martin Luther King in April 1968, the riot signaled the end of the carefully orchestrated, nonviolent demonstrations of the early civil rights movement. And there's a lot of speculation that Martin Luther King was assassinated to get what they have today, because he was going in the total opposite direction, and a bunch of other people were not going to be able to make money off of it. All right.
I've always thought that.
All right. So let's get to the bottom line on this thing. The riots had economically significant negative effects on blacks' income and employment, not just the property values in your neighborhood, but on your income and your employment. Further, those effects may have largely in the long run from 1960 to 1980 than in the short run. So this was a long-term effect. And so we go back, now we look at, he doesn't cover this in this article. This article is written by David R. Francis. But there are other articles now that throw in the 1980s and the 1990s and even the 2000s. You go back to Rodney King in Los Angeles. That neighborhood is still suffering from the effects. Blacks go out and hurt themselves. They hurt their property values. They hurt their job situations. They hurt their incomes. Harvard has done a study on this. These are not pretty studies, folks. And I hate to say this, but the blacks bring it on themselves. And the NAACP president yesterday came out and said, burning buildings in your own community is like putting a gun to your own head. Well, it's nice for him to come out and say that, but why aren't you out there trying to stop all this? It's nice for sound bites. And it's like your leader, Obama, he sounds good, but his actions are totally different. And that's what we're seeing here. And I really did not plan to spend this much time on this subject today, but we've got to put it into perspective. If Nzinga hadn't come out and basically called the blacks out to war, which is what he did. He called them out to war, just like Louis Farrakhan did back in last August. They're calling the blacks out to war to kill cops and whites. And we saw what happened around this country with groups of blacks going around attacking whites, beating them, shooting them, even walking up and shooting an infant in a stroller with the mother standing there. Because they're being told this is the only justice you're going to get. And this is where we're seeing, I'm going to bring up the Founding Fathers now, where they said this Constitution was meant for a moral and just society. And once we move from that, heaven forbid. And that's what's happening here. How many people, when we look at the gay lesbian thing, look at the people out there that are sitting there saying, that's no big deal. It is a big deal when you look at a moral, just society. Yeah, we don't want to treat you bad. Just go do what you want to do, but don't shove it down our throats. And don't get used by an organization that wants to achieve something totally different, i.e. doing away with freedom of religion, doing away with churches, taking away their tax exempt status, making them go broke, make people say, oh, I can't donate money. And I'll promise you this, people that believe in their religion, that believe in their church, they will give. They're not going to worry about being able to write it off on their taxes. That's not what they're made of. Religious people are made up of a higher law, of God's law, of our Creator's law, and they understand that sacrifices have to be made. And religions will survive. Now, it's in the hands of the Supreme Court right now. Who knows how they're going to judge on this? But they had really better sit there and look in a mirror and say, if I vote for same-sex marriage, what are the consequences? There's already articles out there talking about the new billion-dollar industries that are going to crop up because of that. Folks, evil is at work. And if we don't stand up against it, we're going to be crushed. And I don't know how to say it any other way. But that's what's happening in America. I know I harp on it, I talk about it, but if you study any kind of history, anytime a nation goes under, it goes under because of what is happening in America today. Now, I don't know if I can find this real fast. Glenn Beck, where is it? I just went past a picture of Hillary. You know, you lose your breath when you see those pictures. Glenn Beck came out. His article was, "Is the United States becoming a Soviet Russia?" And I know I've got that article somewhere.
If I were going to answer that, I'd say, yeah, we are.
We are.
Everyone's got the right to disagree with Richard and I, but you know, Richard's an old man, and the thing is, I'm an even older old man, and we've been there, seen it, done that, folks. And that's why we take time to preach this to you. We're headed down the rabbit hole, and it ain't good when you get to the bottom.
Oh, and before I forget, I need a big shout out to our good friend, Tom Herron, director of Up With America. His birthday's today. Happy birthday, Tom.
Birthday, Tom.
I hope you have many more. We got to get him back on the show. He and I keep talking, and it's been tough. Okay, here it is. 10 ways that the United States is becoming Soviet Russia West. All right, I'm not going to go into each one of them. You'll know, and then I'm going to compare it to Karl Marx's. Where is it? His manifesto. All right, it's right there. Abolition of private property. Okay, that's his first one, he says. Number 2, heavy progressive income tax. Yep. Abolition to all rights of inheritance. Yep, we're doing that. Confiscation of property of all the immigrants and rebels. We're getting close to all of that. Okay. Number 5, centralization and monopolization of credit by means of a national bank. We're already there. Federal Reserve. Centralized control of communication and transportation. Yep, we're almost all there. Controlling communication. We're almost there. Matter of fact, we're 99% there. Government ownership of factories. You'd be surprised how many, we own GM and we own a lot of companies in the United States, the government does, and they're also, the SEC came out yesterday with a new ruling governing what corporations can pay their top executives. That's called macro-prudential policies. If I get time, I'll go into that tonight. Equal liability of all to labor. That's interesting. A combination of agriculture and with manufacturing industries. Archer Daniel, Midlands, Monsanto, etc. Free education for all children and government-controlled schools. The key there is government-controlled schools. That's why they won't do vouchers. All right, the 10 planks of Karl Marx. Abolition of private property rights. Institution of a heavy graduated income tax. Abolition of all rights of inheritance. This is basically what Glenn Beck was going down. Confiscation of property of enemies of the state. And boy, there are a lot of enemies of the progressives. Centralization of credit to the banks, etc. Centralization of the means of communication, transportation, consolidation and subjugation of all major industries to central government control. EPA, FDA, OSHA, NLRB, EEOC, FCC, on and on down the line. Mandatory labor union membership. They're trying that, but it ain't happening. Equitable redistribution of all wealth. That's through taxation and fees, etc. Free public education, food, healthcare, etc. So Glenn Beck was basically following the Karl Marx manifesto, Communist Manifesto. This is what we're looking at here. Are we becoming Soviet Russia West? Are we becoming a communist nation? Absolutely. And they've done it one step, 1 inch at a time. And they made it sound so good. The intent of this is really, really good. Well, the intent is to put you and I into slavery. And that's what this whole thing is about. The one world government that now Bill Gates has come out. We'd be a whole lot better off with one world government. Bill Gates from yesterday. This is where we are, folks. It's amazing. And oh, did you hear this? A law school in DC has said if the law students will go out and give free legal advice to protesters, they don't have to take their final exams. Number one, they're not attorneys yet. What were you going to say, Tucklow?
I just amazed at that. I said, whoa, go continue. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah. So we sit here and look at the total, absolute, crazy, insane attitudes and thoughts that are going on out there. I mean, there are actually people out there today calling for all cops to be disarmed in America, and blacks that weren't convicted of a violent crime to be released from prisons. Now, that group is sitting there. What are they thinking of? Okay, let's go have this war. But you know what? They're forgetting the 30 million Americans that are armed. Like I say, you want a war? I feel for you. This is amazing. So we're trying to reach out to everybody we can. We really are. But
yeah, I've had a few quote unquote friends jump on me for having guns, and how dare I have a firearm? You can go, let me explain something real quick. Sometimes I like meat that's not in the store, and I go kill it, I skin it, and I eat it. I like fish out of a lake, so I catch it, I skin it, and I eat it. But I actually posted a deal one time where some bleeding heart liberal stated to all you hunters, shame on you. You need to go to the store and buy your meat like everybody else where no animals are harmed. And I got thinking, can somebody really be that stupid? It's just amazing.
yeah, where do you think chicken and meats come from? Okay, it's time. And I think if we've been paying attention, this is our last break, and then we'll come back and wrap this show up.
Okay, folks, here we go. Well, Richard, I have been hacked. So There's no sense me trying to get the radio portion of this back up. I will finish the show with you, though.
Yeah, because luckily, for some reason, I'm still on YouTube live stream. So,
Well, they got me on the not at my site, but at one of the providers. Well, three of the providers. They shut them down.
well, I'm surprised it took them that long. Probably because, anyway. All right, I want to go back to rights a little bit. We're going to pick this up again next Tuesday. But this is Ayn Rand. She wrote a great essay on the rights of man. Google it and read it. It's fantastic. But this is part of it that goes into what we're talking about today. And then I'm going to finish with Abraham Lincoln. It was the concept of individual rights that had given birth to a free society. It was the destruction of individual rights that the destruction of freedom had to begin. The collectivist tyranny dare not enslave a country by an outright confiscation of its values, material, or morale. It has to be done by a process of internal corruption. Just as in the material realm, the plundering of a country's wealth is accomplished by inflating the currency. So today, one may witness the process of inflation being applied to the realm of rights. The process entails such a growth of newly promulgated rights that people do not notice the fact that the meaning of the concept is being reversed. Just as bad money drives out good money, so these printing press rights negate authentic rights. Consider the curious fact that never has there been such a proliferation all over the world of two contradictory phenomena of alleged new rights and the slave labor camps. The gimmick was the switch of the concept of rights from the political to the economic realm. If that doesn't describe what is happening today in this country, I don't know what is. That you can't go in at once, but if you do it step at a time. They've been doing this since the 1950s. And it actually started with Woodrow Wilson before World War I and after World War I. All right, how much time we got left? Tucklow, are you there?
I'm still here.
Okay, how much time we got left?
Trace what happened to my feed.
All right, I want to finish with Abraham Lincoln.
I'm still broadcasting on 2 feeds.
All righty. I want to finish with Abraham Lincoln. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what we did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, that that government of the people, by the people, for the people shall not perish from this earth. Now, since that time, Gettysburg Address, many others have given their lives to maintain freedom in this land. And we have to put on the armor, not literal armor, but and maybe so, but the armor of freedom to go forth and stand up and fight what is happening. So let's put on that armor. Let's follow the admonition of not only Abraham Lincoln, but George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, and fight what is going on in this nation. We need to stand up for the original rights that we were given, for the constitutional rights. That's the principles that we need to fight for. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. This has been last two shows have had me worked up because of what's going on in this country, and continues to develop. And I don't see it turning around unless we do something. Tucklow, thank you again for the platform that I can express these views and give out the facts and information to help people understand the war that we're in. So Tucklow, thank you. Good night, everyone. Have a great tonight and few till next Tuesday when we see you again. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Richard. Folks, we'll be back Monday night. Be there for you. Bye-bye.